Talley?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, let's go ahead and start this morning's meeting, and Joyce will ask you to do a roll call, please.
Okay. Dave Talley,
Here.
Amy McDonald, Michael Dixon.
He's here.
Okay. Mark Bymaster, Kathleen Weigel, Leandre Camel,
Here.
Alyssa Dobbin.
Here.
Okay. All right, Mr. Talley.
Okay, I'm here. I'm sorry. My audio is off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a quorum, right?
Yes.
We have 4. Okay, I can't really see the room, but if we want to go ahead and start down at one end and do the introductions, that'd be fine.
Yeah, sure. Bob Bliss, Office of Inspector General.
Randy Laws, IG's office.
Teresa Michael, Inspector General.
Christina Daniels, Office of Inspector General.
Joyce Edison, Office of Inspector General.
And Carrie High, Counsel to Inspector General.
Heather Frederick, Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, Frank, are you there? Oh, I thought he was.
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome. All right, we'll go to take a minute and look at the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda, Terry?
No additions or deletions. However, we cannot approve the minutes since we are not physically present. So if we can, we'll look at those and then approve them at the next meeting.
Okay. Then all I can do for the second one is just have you review those minutes, and we'll approve those at the next meeting. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll go to the IG update. Ms. Michael?
Okay, perfect. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here today. We have a couple of things I wanted to talk about, and we did this virtually. I take your time very seriously, but we have had quite a few months since we've actually met, so I wanted to update everybody, cover a few things that have been going on, and also answer any questions if any of the audit committee members or any of the stakeholders may have. One of the first things I wanted to discuss was my evaluation. We were not able to meet to formally approve the evaluation that the audit committee submitted, but technically my contract doesn't require approval, it just requires that the audit committee submit their scores for review by the board members. One of the things that I do is when the audit committee members submit their scores, I don't see them until the board members actually receive them. That way I'm not sitting there trying to prepare the board members for anything. So the first time I saw them was when the board members saw them. And as you could see, we have the overall rating up there, and I do appreciate that very much, the 4.9. Greatly appreciate that. And the comments that were made, I've also taken a look at them, and I've taken notice of some of the comments, and one of the comments involved the phone calls. Now, and I understand that completely. The current matrix says that how the office handles all phone calls, and I understand that's almost impossible to be able to judge that. So I'm going to look at how I can change the matrix to more accurately reflect so that people are more comfortable in their response in that matter. So I will look at that and address that issue. I also, if there's anything on the evaluation process that the audit committee would like to see differently, anything you'd like me to do differently or my staff to do that make it a little bit easier for you, a little bit more palatable, please let me know. I try to do as much as I can to make it as painless as possible for everyone, but I understand that it is time-consuming. So if you have any questions or concerns about the overall evaluation, or you'd like to make any comments directly to me about the overall evaluation, I believe now would be a good time.
I think overall, this is Dave. I think overall, if the format of the evaluation was well done, so I commend you on the structure of that. And I see that Kathy Weigel has joined us.
Great. Welcome, Ms. Weigel. All right, if there's no concerns on that matter, then we'll go on to the next issue, and this is kind of the little bit more important one that I wanted to discuss, and that is the new pending legislation that we have. All right, and it's CS for SB 7014. Let's see if we can get that one raised over from the other computer. Now, what that is, there's a pending legislation that the Senate and the House has approved. Right now, as of this morning, it was engrossed and enrolled, so it's just pending being sent to the governor. And if signed by the governor, which I imagine he will, because this is a Republican-backed amendment, I can't imagine that he's going to veto it. This will have a severe impact on the IG's office, as well as Office of Professional Standards and other agencies that conduct administrative investigations that are based on ethics-related type complaints. And essentially what had happened was the initial proposed legislation was just directed towards the Florida Commission on Ethics in Tallahassee. And I had been tracking that because that's some of the process that the Florida Commission on Ethics was using, I was going to try to adopt. So as I was watching that go through the process, at the very last stop, they added this language here, which you're seeing. And this language here is where there was a significant impact to local political entities such as ourselves, the school district, as well as the local Commission on Ethics, and also affect the local IGs. And what this language is saying is that prior to initiating any investigation, we have to have a written sworn affidavit submitted by somebody who has personal or direct knowledge of the allegations being reported. And they have to sign and swear to that affidavit. So we can no longer take anonymous complaints. All of the allegations had to be based, again, on personal direct knowledge, so no hearsay. It prohibits the initiation of a complaint or investigation by the IG. So if the Palm Beach Post does a wonderful expose and says that half of the district is on the take, unless they're willing to name their sources and those sources come in and give an affidavit, we can't look at it. It also causes some problems where if we have a person that gives, says, I overheard this issue, and I think it's very important. Again, overhearing something doesn't work. We have to have somebody that has direct personal knowledge of that. Some of the concerns that also have is that once, if we initiate an investigation based on hearsay, or if somebody makes a report and they don't have direct personal knowledge, and they know that they don't have direct personal knowledge of this, but go forward anyways and misrepresent it, then that person could be liable for attorney's fees and any associated costs. So I imagine that this is going to have a severe impact on people reporting, naturally, and we're also going to probably have an increase on people requesting whistleblower status, because that will at least protect their identity, but they still will have to come forward and do the sworn affidavit. They still have to have personal and direct knowledge. So some of the questions that we are working on, because the legislation is vague in some areas, is what is the definition of an investigation? We are looking at, can we start an inquiry or a preliminary review, and is that enough for us to be able to start an investigation once we have some information? Again, those are some legal questions that both our counsel and the school board's general counsel are looking into. There's also questions about once we've initiated an investigation or an audit and we discover something else throughout that purpose of that, can we go forward with it, or do we have to have somebody with direct knowledge? Can this be an offshoot? Again, those are all questions that we're looking at to try to address. All right, what are we doing to prepare for this? Number one, we've developed the affidavit process to comply with the new legislation. We have a vacant intake person, Morgan left, who is our other intake counselor, and she's moved up to Tallahassee. So we now have a new intake coordinator position. Because of these new requirements, the new intake coordinator is going to have to be an investigator, essentially, because they're going to have to go out and take sworn affidavits. They're going to have to know how to interview. They're going to have to know how to understand the whistleblower statutes, what hearsay is, and it's going to be a very complicated and arduous process. So we've revised that job description that has to go in front of the board. I'm hoping to get that in front of the next board, and if that's approved, then we can go forward in hiring that new person. I also, again, I believe that we're going to have an uptake in people requesting whistleblower status. Now, every complaint that we receive, we do an informal review for whistleblower status, but if somebody actually requests whistleblower, then we do a formal intake of that, and has some very specific steps, very specific deadlines, and that's something that the new intake person will have to do. Again, this also affects OPS and anybody else who does investigations within the district that are non-criminal. This will have no impact on school police. So I can imagine if we have any complaints that slightly might be criminal in nature, especially if it has to do with health, safety, and welfare, we're going to send those to school police immediately. I don't want to take the chance that we are ignoring a complaint because we don't have a sworn affidavit from somebody and it's anonymous, yet there could be a child or a staff member in danger. So there's going to be an uptake with school police receiving complaints as well. Also, we are looking at identifying some other ways in which we can get the process from CARES to the staff as quickly as possible and the reviews, because I don't know exactly how this is going to impact our investigations. If we're going to have a lot more investigations, a lot less, nobody knows. That's essentially the update on the legislation. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm not sure where you start.
I understand that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I have to think about it myself. I don't have any comments right this minute, though.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I asked at the board meeting what we were going to do about the anonymous line that comes into the outside vendor that we use. Madam IG, can you explain how that's going to affect that and what steps you've taken with respect to the anonymous line? I guess we can't take anonymous calls unless somebody's willing to come in and sign the affidavit. Is that correct?
Right. So what we're going to do is we're not going to refuse the call. We will take the call, even if they say they're going to be anonymous. They're just not going to be able to initiate an investigation. So what we'll probably end up doing is refer that to management for their information. And they can take action based on that if there's not enough for us to initiate a formal investigation into it. I don't want to shut down the line completely, just in case we do have somebody that is reporting, a health, safety, and welfare on a child. We could have a nonverbal autistic child, and, the parent wants to make a complaint. We want to take those. It's going to take some, we're going to have to do a lot more vetting. We're going to have to reach out to people and say, okay, I understand you're anonymous. If we have an email, we're going to say we can't go forward unless you're willing to give us a sworn statement. If they're not willing, then we're just going to send it to management for information purposes. But I don't want to shut down the influx of information just based on the fact that I cannot initiate a formal investigation. Again, we don't know if I can initiate a review. Can I initiate an inquiry? You know, that right now those are legal questions that still haven't been answered. So I don't want to shut down. We're just going to cause us a lot more work on how we handle and process those complaints.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other states that kind of have this rule in place that we can kind of use as guidance, or is this kind of a new wave or a new thing? I guess.
Well, again, the Commission on Ethics, this is how they handle complaints, and that's how I was looking at handling those complaints for those issues that go towards myself, the school board members, towards, you know, the superintendent and the general counsel. I was going to use that same process because there's no vetting of those complaints. You know, once you file a complaint, according to our policy, somebody has to investigate it when you make those complaints against the board members or myself. So I was trying to kind of follow that process, and essentially they want that same process to be done for everyone. Now, some of the thought or the rationale from watching all the committee hearings was that they're afraid that anybody could weaponize making a complaint, especially right before an election. And then you'd have this complaint, and the person's being investigated, and turns out it's nothing, but it could affect their election. What they don't realize is that you can make that complaint, and the Palm Beach Post can do a huge expose on that, and it's just going to be out there, and no one's ever going to investigate to clear you, because we don't have a sworn affidavit. So you're going to have a lot of unanswered allegations out there. So I don't think this is going to have the effect that they had communicated was their intent.
Okay, are there any other questions of Terry?
So essentially now I'm watching this a couple of times a day to see when it goes to the governor for a signature. The legislation states that once it's signed, it'll be effective in October. We will be ready. That's going to require a lot of training by my staff to understand that they cannot look at everything just because they see something that looks like it's a problem. We're going to work with OPS and the General Counsel's office to make sure that we are following the laws. And again, we don't make the laws, we just enforce the rules, and we'll ensure that we're following whatever legislation Tallahassee puts out.
I don't envy you.
We'll handle it just fine. We got a good team here. We'll make the adjustments.
I know you will. Okay, are there any other questions or comments of Terry pertaining to Senate Bill 7014? Okay, if not,
Mr. Chair, Leandre here.
yes.
Is it possible we can have this item come back before us at a next meeting when we are in person to give us, I just need some opportunity to digest it, but also, if at all possible, how would can you lay out a roadmap, your current roadmap, and what this legislation would do with your roadmap once you get the complaint, Madam IG?
Yes, I already have a flow chart prepared that will show, again, you know, I have the process laid out on how to take an affidavit, what the requirements in the affidavit will need to be in order for it to be legally sufficient for us to continue. And I will present all that information at our next meeting. And what I plan to do all the way up until when it's signed is that at every audit committee, I'll update you on our progress if there's any developments. So those will just be part of our normal audit committee briefing. And I'll have all the process maps and the affidavits and the instructions for everything available for you all when we're in person at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam IG.
Great. Anything else? If not, we'll go on to item 5, the internal funds audit as of April 4th.
Good morning. The excuse me. The FY23's internal funds audit, audit fieldwork has been completed. And then for this year's, we found that 36 schools had no significant findings. For the remaining 139 schools, as of yesterday, we have received the principal's response from 121 schools, and we are still waiting for the responses from 18 schools. The district-wide management letter has been sent to the chief financial officers for review, and the response is due on April 30th. So once we get the response, the report will be ready to present to the audit committee at next meeting in May. Is there any questions about the status of the internal funds?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
We'll go on now to item 6, compliance and quality assurance. Terry?
Yeah, hi, good morning. This is Bob Bliss, Officer.
Oh, okay, Bob.
Compliance and Quality Assurance. Attached to your agenda, mostly as an FYI, you'll find 2 quarterly reports that summarize our office's procurement-related activities. In there, you'll see we attended all 6 of the monthly construction oversight and review committee meetings, as well as the 2 quarterly independent sales surtax oversight committee meetings that were held. We also attended a total of 5 contract evaluation committee meetings and 5 contract negotiation meetings. And those meetings involved a total contract value of more than $60 million. Now, while we attend those meetings, we make observations, and you'll see a few that we made in these reports in the column entitled Potential Issues/Concerns. And the good news is those concerns were quickly addressed by management at the time. And that's all I have to say on these reports, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions of Bob? Okay, we'll move on. And item 7, the investigations. There are 6 of them, and Joyce previously sent those to all the committee members. So we'll go on with that. Are there any general comments? Okay, well, hearing none, our next scheduled meeting is going to be on May 10th. And with that, is there any further business to come before the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't know if Ms. Michaels has advised any of the audit committee members in the past, but we have these continuing contracts that I guess the new state law is going to allow up to $7 million, the limit. I don't fully understand how they work, other than the fact that once the board approves continuing contracts, we have one that's 0 to 2 million, and we approved one that's 2 million to 4 million. Those items. Can you hear me? Mr. Chair, can you hear okay?
Yes.
Okay, so once those continuing contracts are approved by the board doesn't get to see anything that's spent on that money. It's never reported to us. It does not go to Construction Oversight Review Committee. So, I've been working with the superintendent to come up with a couple of things. First of all, I think the continuing contract expenditures, especially if they go up to $7 million without the board ever seeing them, should go to Construction Oversight Review Committee, which would then give all of you the ability to see anything that comes up. Because I've asked that if the Construction Oversight Review Committee finds an issue that they're not pleased with, that is reported to the board, which then would give you all the opportunity to review that also. So it concerns me that, that the administration could spend up to $7 million under the new statute, and the board never sees those expenditures. Neither does the Construction Oversight Review Committee see them. The other thing that the superintendent and I are working together on is having an outside evaluate the bids that come in, because currently, I understand is the one that evaluates kind of also gets a piece of every project. My understanding, almost every project that the district spends money on construction-wise, and AECOM is the one that's evaluating the bid. So I'm not suggesting they do anything nefarious here, but there is the opportunity, since they have they get a percentage of the overall contract, and they are also the ones that are determining whether the bids that we're getting are, fair and reasonable. So I know the superintendent has indicated to me that they're currently looking for an outside third-party firm that will be retained to evaluate bids that come in, which will certainly help Bob Bliss is part of the auditing, since he oversees a lot of the construction projects. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I'm sure there'll be more information coming to you once the board acts on those items.
Great, thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, Leandre
Yes.
here. In light of what Mr. Barbieri just shared with us, I am sitting here wondering if we need to put together a more stringent policy, just from the audit. From that perspective, we should make a recommendation to the board for a more stringent policy in place, so that we're not missing that $7 million loophole. Now, I don't know legally if that needs some additional, if we're able to do it, but I think we should have something in place in light of that. But that's just me asking.
Okay. Heather?
Yes, I did want to mention that the Florida statute, or the legislature did pass increasing that limit for the continuing contracts up to $7 million. But we were going to continue to leave it internally at the $4 million threshold. We were not planning to increase it. And then the reason for the increase is, costs have escalated. And so the board does approve, but they approve at the consolidated level. So we'll bring to the board an agenda item saying we're going to spend $80 million on continuing contracts. And then we don't bring each individual contract to the board. And it's just because there are so many at that lower dollar amount. It assists with not slowing down the project. And so I just wanted to at least mention that we were not planning to increase up to that $7 million, to give the audit committee some comfort on that, as well as Mr. Barbieri. And then within the CFO division, another process that we wanted to implement, which will just supplement what's already being performed by the Inspector General's office and the work by Mr. Bob Bliss, is having hiring a construction auditor that will audit each of the contract billing invoices. And it doesn't replace what the Inspector General is doing. It is, like I said, supplementing it, and it's more of a control on the business side, where it's verifying that all the bills are correct. And it's just another additional check that we're verifying, all the billing information. So just wanted to give some guidance and additional information to the committee on that. So we're working through trying to procure that contract. It is best practice, and several districts across the state have a construction audit firm. And so we are going to be putting that in place as well over the upcoming months.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments of Heather's presentation?
No questions, but that's why I love this committee, the forward thinking from the staff and the team here. I appreciate that, Heather.
Great. Okay, is there any further business to come before the committee? If not, again, the next meeting is scheduled for May 10th. And with that, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for joining us virtually, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you.